I can't make up my mind. I still can't decide if I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is amazing, or if I was really disappointed. I guess it's somewhere in between. The IMDb rating is 7.6 out of 10, so it looks like the majority of people have enjoyed it. This is a Tarantino film, a Quentin Tarantino film, so obviously there's a massive audience for it. A lot of people who are going to see it and love it, and that's fantastic. And it has all the markers of a brilliant film. But there is a little bit where it felt a bit dire. But I promise there won't be any spoilers in this, so if you haven't seen the film, you're fine to listen. It's a very long film. It's almost 3 hours. It might be 2.5 hours. Very long film. And I think that's maybe why I felt it dragged a little bit. The beginning was really good and really engaging. The middle had not a lot going for it. And then towards the end I thought it did really well for itself. So there's a lot that I think they could have cut out of this. A lot. But the bits that were good were really enjoyable. So to give you a better understanding of what it's about, I shall read the description from IMDb, which is as follows. A faded television actor and his stunt double strive to achieve fame and success in the final years of Hollywood's golden age in 1969 Los Angeles. The driving force behind this, aside from Tarantino, is the cast. The casting is incredible. So we have DiCaprio as Rick Dalton, and Brad Pitt as Cliff Booth, Margot Robbie as Sharon Tate, lots of other, Dakota Fanning's in it, Al Pacino. I'm just looking through the list of the cast on IMDb, and it's just name after name after name, and that's brilliant. But obviously having DiCaprio and Pitt on screen together, it's wonderful. It works so well. I love the setting, the fact that it's set in the late 60s. I think it's really nice. I love the scenery, the clothing, the attitudes. But aside from that, it's a very, not a lot happens kind of story. So we have the washed up actor, and then we have a stunt double. And we just follow them around and they just do stuff. And there are times when things get a little bit heated. Certain things happen that put stumbling blocks in their way. Obviously, like any good narrative, there are problems. But when I try and recount the narrative and say, well, this happened and this happened, there was rising action here, this was a problem, this is how they overcame it, there's not much there. There really isn't much substance to it. And I feel like it's more of a pet project for Tarantino to just try and kind of expel all of this late 60s Hollywood. Kind of very much a fan project, which is fine. That's not a problem. But that's something that's worth bearing in mind. I enjoyed it for the scenery. I enjoyed it for the little tidbits of the 60s Hollywood that we get. The narrative is not good. There's nothing to it. It's very basic in that respect. But visually, it is quite pleasing. We do meet some characters along the way who bring in a little bit of emotion, who make it a little bit more, who give it a bit more substance. But for the most part, it's very much a nothing story. And you may feel differently, and that's perfectly fine. But for me, I just felt the narrative was driven mainly by Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth. The rest of it was just not really anything to write home about. And maybe if they'd got rid of all the rubbish in the middle and little bits here and there and condensed it, it might have been a bit more interesting. But it just feels like they turned on the cameras and said, right, just go and do what you want, have conversations, and that's, we'll call it a day, and just put it together and splice everything and make a montage as a kind of nod to 60s Hollywood. And that's basically what it is. But as I said, it's not a bad thing visually. But if you're looking for a gritty story and a brilliant narrative to follow, it's not it. As I said, there are certainly moments where it's quite intense and enjoyable. For the most part, no. And that's why I'm not really able to make up my mind. If you're interested in Hollywood and the history of Hollywood, I would say watch it. If you're looking for a really good story, though, look for something else. Great cast, well acted, beautiful imagery. Not much of a narrative.